I would like to welcome everyone officially to the SHAPE Trial Advisory Meeting. It is a pleasure to reconvene here and see new faces. You know, about 10 years ago, we, with Dr. Shah and several names here that I'd like to one by one introduce and connect, that we came here not knowing what we're going to do, really just very fluent, and 2 days later, 3 days later, we got out with some concept that became SHAPE guidelines about 2 years later. We came one more time here about 5 years ago to look into SHAPE 2 guidelines, and that was also a very interactive and fluid discussion that arrived to some level of clarity, but we left it open. And now we're here. This time, as I said, we have several new faces. I would like to first thank for their participation, but SHAPE has never been tagged to any particular group. Though some other people may picture us as an imaging group. We're not an imaging group. We are not any particular coronary calcium club, or we're just a group of people who are passionate about their cause and advancing the status quo. And so with that, I would like to ask every team member to introduce. Particularly, we have Jessica Mega from Google, formerly Harvard, as a new face. She's going to teach us alphabet and tell us about the baseline study. So thank you for joining us as a new face. Mike McConnell is a new face team, and the leader of a major study at Stanford and Apple. We are glad to have you. And we have David Marin as a new face, who just went up and started chairing everybody by email, which was awesome and took a lot of pressure off my shoulders. Thank you for coming and offering your help and support. Nathan Wong, sorry you're last minute, but thank you for coming over and joining us. You officially joined SHAPE last year, or I don't know, year before, and so I'm glad to have you. Pretty much everybody else been here, and of course Henrik was here, I think 5 years ago. Henrik, it's a big trip for Henrik to come all the way from Denmark. So these are the new faces, but I'd like to go to start with the very first. I mean, after PK, Matt was the SHAPE face, and so Matt, we're going to go around the room and just say a few words. It's partially because of the camera. In part, by the way, everything in the SHAPE group so far has been totally transparent. At some point, we were having even live on the internet. So everything that is here will be on our website. People can see, and sometimes they put comments and so on. We're going to start with Matt and go around the room.
So I'm Matt Budoff. I think I know most people in the room. I work down here at Harvard, UCLA, down in Torrance, and my professorship is through UCLA School of Medicine, now the David Geffen School of Medicine. And I've been involved in coronary calcium since about 1990.
Thank you. I forgot that we have one more new face here. Yeah, because you're so familiar to me, I didn't recognize. Samir Bansilan is a new friend, and a new face to SHAPE. He represents himself as well as his Mount Sinai team and Dr. Fuster. So sorry about that missing. Jessica, please go ahead.
Sure. My name is Jessica Mega. I'm a cardiologist. I am on leave from Harvard Medical School. I now work at Google Life Science and lead up our clinical group, and you'll hear a little bit about what we're doing with Google Life Science. One thing that you may have heard, we now, as you mentioned, are an independent entity, so we are tapping into all of the strengths of Google, but we also have the liberty to promote life sciences as aggressively and as interestingly as we can.
Samir Bansal, I'm a cardiologist at Mount Sinai. I work very closely with Dr. Fuster and previously trained at the TIMI study group with this and Dr. Braunwald. My interest and passion in being here is a shared interest in sort of the concept of there's not enough out there in terms of risk factor screening and what can be done about that in terms of healthcare delivery. So that's my interest here.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm the odd guy here, being a vascular surgeon. I've been working with arterial disease for more than 30 years and also vascular ultrasonography for more than 30 years. I guess you guys figure out that heart disease is actually a vascular disease as well, and that's where we share things in common. And my main reason for being here is that I realize a lot of you are CT people, and you know, CT is great and coronary calcium is great. Ultrasound is also great and offers some opportunities that I just think should be taken into consideration if there's going to be run a new trial. And obviously I'm going to show you some of the latest data that we got from the bioimage study where I did the ultrasound and was co-lab leader. So.
I am Joanne Zawitowski. I'm a partner in a Baltimore law firm, and I've been the chairman of the board, I guess, of SHAPE for about the past 8 years. And I got involved with SHAPE about 2 years after my husband died in 2004 of sudden coronary death, and he was only 48 and he had no symptoms. So I began to be interested in asymptomatic and vulnerable patients and found Dr. Naghavi, and we've been together ever since. I hold a major fundraiser every year in Baltimore for the benefit of SHAPE.
I would like to add that without Joanne's support and her fundraising that she does every year, we would not have been here. That has been, and it's been truly a passion of love and caring, and what happened to her family and the tragedy she went through. She wanted to help others, and over years, we've done this raising awareness in Baltimore, a golf event under SHAPE, and a lot of people have benefited from that, and so glad to have it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fine. I'm a cardiovascular physiologist, originally from Milwaukee, now living in Columbia, South Carolina, since the year 2000, where I joined South Carolina Heart, a large cardiology group. Been doing calcium scoring since year 2000, and left and now work exclusively with SHAPE as a partner of SHAPE as their executive clinical director of the SHAPE Accredited Centers of Excellence program, which you'll hear a little bit more about tomorrow.
I'm Mike McConnell. I'm a cardiologist at Stanford. My background and research interests have been around non-invasive imaging, cardiovascular MRI, and vessel wall imaging. So definitely a believer in focusing on the vessel wall for heart disease. And then a few years ago when Steve Fortman moved on, I took over our preventive cardiology clinic while we recruited David back. And kind of during that time, developed more interest in the mobile health and wearable field and trying to, you could say, push imaging onto the point of care and through mobile devices, looking at cardiovascular physiology that way. So I'll talk a little bit about our mobile health study.
Thank you.
I'm Dan Berman from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where I'm from the Heart Institute and the Department of Imaging, professor of medicine at Cedars and UCLA, cardiologist involved in coronary calcium scanning since coronary calcium since 1977. In diagnostic testing in 77, we used calcium scanning with fluoroscopy, along with George Diamond and Jim Forrester for the detection of coronary disease before the CT scanning. I've been involved with SHAPE for a long time now, and spend my time at this point in preventive cardiology.
I'm David Marin from Stanford. I'm a cardiologist and a preventive cardiologist. I used to direct the preventive cardiology clinic about 25 years ago, and then ended up going to Vanderbilt, where I spent about 20 years. While I was there, I got involved in designing the COURAGE trial, and I'm currently co-chair of the ischemia trial, which is a sequel to the COURAGE trial. My interest is in optimizing medical therapy, whether that's in the presence of or without revascularization, and comparing or looking at the comparative value of revascularization in patients with stable coronary disease. I got introduced to MORT through an initiative in California that we're trying to see if we can get coronary calcium screening paid for by payers and health plans, and that's how our paths crossed. When MORT told me there would be a meeting to design a trial, that got me very excited. This is exciting for me to be involved in designing a study to look at the value of a screening test.
I'm P.K. Shah, cardiologist at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and partner in crime with Morteza Naghavi for the last decade, and one of my tasks is to keep Mort under control so that he doesn't get carried away too far. I'm a big believer in the power of imaging in cardiovascular disease, and that's one of the reasons I stay interested in the SHAPE group. So I'm looking forward to a very productive day.
Is this really working?
Yes, it works.
It's for the camera.
That's how.
No, I'm sitting right there.
That's ours.
That's okay.
So I'm Howard Otis. I'm from USC School of Medicine, now known as the Keck School of Medicine. So I've been involved with arterial imaging and development for over 30 years, predominantly ultrasound technology. And one of the things that we're very interested in, obviously, is the application to clinical studies and to clinical usefulness.
I'm Robert Superco, and I think I'm here to prove that SHAPE is not a calcium club. And he's interested in other things like genetics, metabolism, and stuff, so that's sort of our role. And we've used CAC in a number of clinical trials, and our focus right now is on family heart disease clinics and firefighters. I think it's for the tape.
Yeah.
I'm Brenda Garrett Superco, and I have been involved with SHAPE for about 4 years. I'm proud to be on the executive board. My career started out as a coronary care unit nurse, and then I moved into interventional practice where I managed a very large group and worked with Spencer King, and the prevention bug bit me early on, and I wanted to open prevention clinics, and Spencer said, there's this crazy guy in California you need to meet. So I married him. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nathan Wong. I'm actually a cardiovascular epidemiologist, and actually been on the cardiology faculty at UC Irvine for about 25 years, and have had a long-standing interest in subclinical atherosclerosis, particularly coronary calcium going back to about 1990 and been involved with a number of the actually prospective studies, including MESA, also Framingham, and the actually Eisner study as well. It's a pleasure to be at my first SHAPE Advisory Board meeting.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sanjay Kaul. I'm a cardiologist at Cedars-Sinai. I'll describe myself as a consumer of the evidence that you guys generate. And before I apply that evidence to my patients, I like to scrutinize and appraise the evidence. And you guys do the more difficult part. I just critically appraise the evidence, which is much easier than generating evidence. And I've been a part of SHAPE from the very beginning, although I was reminded by a reporter who sent me an email this morning that I was still part of the Scientific Advisory Board. I was wondering, what was I doing there?
Well, I'm glad to hear that he's being contacted by reporters about this, because that's my role. I'm Dan Keeney, president of DPK Public Relations. Have been involved with SHAPE since 2004, I think. Mort contacted me in advance of a symposia that was about to occur, and we put together an announcement about the first SHAPE guideline. And I was actually drawing from that when we were doing a 10-year reflection just not too long ago. So the fact that reporters are contacting folks, and I think we've been called shameless self-promoters, that's about as good as it gets from a PR person. But very proud to be associated with SHAPE, and I'll be talking a little bit later on at the end of the day with Joanne regarding fundraising essentials and options for SHAPE in order to raise funds for the SHAPE trial.
Thank you, Dan. I would like to give Will Sotka, who's sponsor of this meeting on behalf of Endophilics. You skipped this, but thank you for coming over and supporting the event. So today's meeting is going to be a few presenters, but mostly discussions and moderated discussions. We have a goal for this meeting, and David reminded me before he left Stanford that don't forget to leave room for a lot of design-related discussion. So we have one particular presenter, Jim Min, who wanted to present it or scheduled to present this afternoon, but he has flight problem and needs to present around 11. So we're going to put him on presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Dr. Shah and Dr. Marin to say a few words. And
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everybody. I'm a little hoarse. I think, as Martin indicated, the primary purpose of today's advisory meeting is to review the evidence that supports the role of So the primary goal of today's meeting is to review the evidence that supports the role of atherosclerosis imaging in clinical decision making, and then perhaps come up with a trial design to definitively demonstrate whether detection of subclinical atherosclerosis is useful from a clinical practice standpoint in terms of selecting patients for preventive interventions. And so most of the time, hopefully, will be spent on discussion of the trial and the design of the trial, although I think Dr. Jim Min will present his ideas about the trial, since he's also been thinking along similar lines. So to get started, I'm going to turn the podium over to Dr. Marin, who will introduce our first two speakers.